All right, everyone, this is Grim, and we've got an interesting story to tell today. It's about one of my favorite subjects, Star Wars. It seems there's a little bit of a rumor going around from the future ruler of Earth. Yes, I'm talking about Doomcock. You know, Doomcock has been right before, hashtag Doomcock was right. This one, well, it's just intriguing enough for me to try to comment a little bit more on it, but it gives this old Star Wars fan a new hope. You see, Disney's in some financial trouble. It seems like they're owing some folks some money, specifically for the purchase of Hulu, and specifically Comcast. The theory going around is that they just don't have enough money to pay up, and therefore they're going to have to get that cash somehow. The rumor, then, is that will George Lucas purchase Star Wars back from Disney? Well, folks, let's hope this happens, because it truly does give me a new hope that Star Wars might be revived by its original owner. Now, this is not unprecedented. You see, Disney actually purchased the Power Rangers from its parent company, Saban, and had to sell it back sometime later after probably really not doing a whole heck of a lot to it. I do recall that there were Power Rangers in the Disney parks for quite some time, but other than that, I don't really think that they did much with it. Now, in a similar vein, the Power Rangers were heavily focused on a male audience. I know because lots of kids had Power Rangers toys. And of course, the idea is that you could sell movies and toys and other such things to small boys. Disney has always been able to lock down the princess racket. Well, until recently when they had that Cinderella show up at the Magic Kingdom. But they were able to market to young girls very easily, not so much to little boys. That seemed to have gone to a lot of other focused places, such as superheroes, hence the reason why they purchased Marvel, and of course, purchasing Star Wars. Now, as someone who grew up on Star Wars, and quite frankly, there's very few people who are younger than myself, or for that matter, even some people who are older than myself, that don't fondly remember growing up with a lightsaber in their hand, pretending to be Luke Skywalker or Anakin or possibly Obi-Wan Kenobi, as we fight against the Empire. But this future generation, they don't seem to really be as interested in the Jedis and the lightsabers quite as much. And I think that might have something to do with the fact that Disney has just created some uninspiring artwork with Star Wars. Now, a lot of people are fans of the new movies and the new trilogy, but quite frankly, I don't think they've really churned out the kind of hits that they had in the past with Star Wars as a genre. Of course, this could just be simply because they've tried to expand out and they've clearly tried to tap a female demographic, and maybe that's not what Star Wars is for. There's nothing wrong with having female characters. Princess Leia and, of course, Queen Amidala were staples of the Star Wars stories going back from the inception. However, Disney seemed to want to put them to the first and forefront without actually adding any really great new male super characters. Now, had they done so with one or the other, I think I would have been much more happy with the new trilogy. But my example is that, unfortunately, Finn, who became one of my favorite characters in the first new Disney movie, The Force Awakens, was basically thrown to the wayside. I really wasn't happy with that. I thought this was a really cool idea. A former stormtrooper who goes on to become a Jedi. I mean, he fought with a lightsaber in the movie, and I figured he was going to train along with Rey. The rumor I heard was that he was going to lead a stormtrooper rebellion against the Empire. Now, how cool would that have been? Instead, what we got was a show that focused much more on Rey. I think this was because they thought, well, we already have the boys' market tapped down with Star Wars toys. Let's see if we can sell some more to the girls and maybe double our audience for merchandising. I'm not sure if that really worked, because you can tell if you check a few websites and a few YouTube channels, but plenty of merchandise is sitting on the shelves unsold. Now, the movies did great in terms of box office. I mean, the first movie, The Force Awakens, did $2 billion in ticket sales. After that, they kind of slumped down to about $1.5 billion for the next movie and only about $1 billion for The Last Jedi, which meant that they lost a chunk of their audience and they might not be able to get them back. But I do think that returning the entire Lucasfilm industry, and specifically Star Wars, back to George Lucas might be something that could bring back fans. It was rumored, too, that he had actually written an entire trilogy and handed it over to Disney, only to watch that trilogy be thrown in the trash. Well, hopefully he's got a copy of it, and I'm sure he's got it backed up somewhere. We may see that trilogy. One of the rumors was that it was going to be talking more about the will of the Force, this being some sort of backstory for how the Force actually functions. Now, that's an interesting project, but we'll see where that goes. There was also, of course, a rumor that this would be used to possibly restart the next trilogy of Star Wars movies. For example, they'll just kind of hit the reset button and go back to the Return of the Jedi days and start a new trilogy over. Who knows? Maybe they'll cast new actors. The point being is that Disney hasn't really handled this brand as well as they could have. They don't quite have the merchandising. They don't quite have the movies and the storytelling. They haven't quite won over the fans. But more interestingly, we recently saw the Star Wars Galaxy Cruiser close down. So this hotel, which was really looking pretty impressive, just kind of fizzled. And I think the real reason is the price point. $5,000 just to stay there for a few nights. This is even more than most luxury cruises that would take you around the Caribbean. So who's going to be able to afford this? Well, I guess they were just banking on that Star Wars fans would really spend their money on it. And part of the problem was that had there been a nostalgia factor, for example, if you could have actually met Luke Skywalker or you could have met Han Solo, that might have been something that people my age and people younger than me might have remembered and wanted to actually check out. But instead, they kind of focused much more on the new trilogy. This is true at Galaxy's Edge as well. It's much more focused on the newer movies. Now, this is probably because they were trying to, well, promote the movies that they were putting out. Kind of makes sense. Unfortunately, those are not the movies that people really wanted to see. So, what are we stuck with? Well, we're stuck with basically characters that are not quite as familiar to the older fans. And who's going to actually have money to spend $5,000 a night? Well, older fans who actually, have jobs and established careers and are comfortably upper middle class. And, well, the Star Wars Cruiser just kind of didn't hit them in the right spot. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it was fun. But for $5,000, well, I can think of a lot of better ways to spend my money. I could travel the globe for that price. I could actually see parts of the world that are difficult to get to, say the pyramids of Egypt, for less money. So the Star Wars Cruiser kind of fizzled. So now we're working on the next Indiana Jones film, and the reviews have come in, and they just aren't that great. So we'll see. So my question is, folks at home, do you think that George Lucas purchasing Star Wars will be a good thing? Do you think he'll be able to rekindle the old fans who really want to check out a really great Star Wars film, but really aren't happy with the way that Disney has taken the trilogy? Or do you think that Disney's going to keep Star Wars because it's just making them too much money? Alright, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and we'll come to you soon. This has been Grim.